All right, the webinar has started officially now, and it is being recorded as well.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. We're just going to get started in just a few minutes. Just going to let people trickle in. So just give me about another minute or so. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Lewin. I am a customer success manager here at Unit Solutions. Welcome to this roundtable. Very, very excited for everybody to be here. We're going to be talking about transparent budgeting and reaching for the stars with transparent budgeting. We have some great speakers for you today, and we're going to have some great conversations. And I'm very excited to have all of you here. For those of you who are here, can you just type in the chat where you're coming from? I always like to see where people are coming from and see what those names are. We're going to be using the chat and the questions a lot today. So this is an interactive session. So we'd love to hear from you today. So feel free to type in the chat whenever you can to say where you're from, and we'll get started. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about transparent budgeting. And we're going to learn learn how government finance leaders are navigating, making budgeting information more accessible and streamlining these processes through initiatives such as Transparency Stars in Texas and other budget presentation awards. So we're very excited for our panel today. Oh, the chat is disabled. Maria, if you are able to get that chat up and running, that would be great. I don't know if I have control for that. Thank you very much, Allison. Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't have control for that. Okay. In the meantime, if you want to type it in the question and answer, that would be fine as well. So that would be good. Okay. So I am just going to move over to our agenda here. This focus is of this webinar is going to be mostly question and answer. So I'm going to introduce our speakers in just a moment. So the focus obviously is going to be around transparent budgeting, and we're going to be going through budget processes and streamlining processes. But the real fun is in the interactive polls as well as the questions. So we're going to go through all of that, and very, very, like I said, I'm very excited to go through all that. So we do have we're very delighted to have some great speakers with us today. We have Lisa Wassner, who started her career in municipal finance in 2014 after graduating from Sam Houston State University with her bachelor's in accounting. She has been with the city of Shenandoah, Texas since then, and has served as an accountant and promoted to finance director in 2019. She is a native of southern New Jersey and enjoys visiting the Jersey Shore several times a year. She is married and is the proud mother of 3 rescue dogs. We love our dogs around here. And she is also pursuing her master's in governmental accounting through Rutgers University. She has promoted modernizing the financial processes and transparency for the city of Shenandoah and is currently upgrading the current transparency into open book. We also have Cecilia McCorkle, who is the budgeting and implementation consultant at Unit Solutions. And Cecilia has over 15 years of experience providing budget and financial services to local government agencies, including 10 years leading budget development and finance management teams. Prior to her consultant role with Questica, she was county-wide budget division director for Pinellas County, Florida, where as a customer, she managed the implementation of Questica budget. She is also passionate about refining processes and leveraging technology to create operational efficiencies for organizations. And myself, I am a customer success manager at Unis Solutions. I've been with the company for 4 years, and I'm my a lot of as my primary role as customer success manager. I also dabble in facilitating a lot of these webinars as well as our eTutor Tuesdays, and I host the podcast Quest for Better Budgeting. So if you enjoy listening to interviews with for better budgeting and on podcasts, please feel free to look up your favorite podcast app and just Google Quest for Better Budgeting. We talk a lot about with the GFOA, we talk a lot about rethinking budgeting. We talk about equity in budgeting, talk about managing assets. It's a very, very interesting podcast. Of all, I'm biased, but it's a very interesting podcast. Well, welcome, ladies. I really appreciate it. Welcome, Lisa, and welcome, Cecilia. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So we have this webinar scheduled for 1 hour. We're going to try and keep it to that 1 hour, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. So I hope the webinar chat is available, but if you do have a question, it's easier for us to manage the Q&A question box a little easier. If you have other things, you can type in the webinar chat. That's not a problem. But we will be recording this webinar, and we will share the recording through email. And the session is meant to be interactive, like I mentioned. So you have access to the Q&A, the chat. We'll take questions throughout. So feel free to chime in with questions, comments, and share your experiences. Let's jump into the questions, and we'll have everybody just kind of chime in as we go along. So the first question, Lisa, we want to get to know a little bit about you and your role at the City of Shenandoah. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and then a little bit about the city in itself, the annual budget, form of government, and so forth?
Yeah. So I don't know, not many people know where Shenandoah is, but basically we're 30 miles north of Houston between the Woodlands and Conroe. Best way to explain where we are in the 45 corridor there. So we are a small city. We're primarily commercial based. We do have 3,500 residents, but we anticipate that number to be about 5,000 now, because that 3,500 was from the last census. So we are a small city, but we are a very, we have a lot going on. I started here in 2014. I was the accountant. I promoted to finance director in 2019 officially. I was interim for a while. The main goal I got when I got onto this position was to try to make our budget more friendly for both the public and also for our council. We're really big on transparency here. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And because we are a small government, I am just a team of 2.5 people. So we have 2 full-time, well, no, I have 3 full-time now, 3 full-time and 1 part-time. So we are slowly getting there on the open book module with our transparency, but we are getting there. So we are a small government. And I know there's a lot of us in Texas. From New Jersey, there's not that many because we have townships, but in Texas, there's a lot of small cities. And it seems as we're going further with local government, it's getting a little bit more focused on where the dollars are going. Right. And that's pretty much everywhere. So budget prep starts with me and the city administrator and the mayor. I draft. We do not have a centralized budgeting department. We have each department goes onto Questica, puts their budget in. We do a modified zero-based budget. We start from the ground up each year. There's no increases by percentage unless it's a contract percent. We look at historical spend and trends, and we apply it to what actually needs to be put in the budget, not just straight up percent increase on each line item. Because we are small and we like our transparency, our budget's very detailed. If you can go into my website, you can see our budgets. Each GL account has exactly what's spent out of there. There are some miscellaneous things, but most of it has a tie to it so that you can see where actually the dollars add up. And that's pretty much it. Our annual budget is about $20 million. And we're in the fiscal year that starts on 10/1. So we just got through this last
congratulations.
It was a lot,
Yeah.
a lot of things going on in the world. So and it affects local government just like it does everyone else.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And something you mentioned that I find quite interesting, your city has grown seemingly quite a bit from 3,500 to 5,000 in a very small amount of time.
mhm.
What can you tell us a little bit of, like, is there a specific reason, or is that just the way it's been growing for a while?
So we have a few multifamilies that went online, complexes, apartment complexes, and then also we have it's an interesting subdivision on the east side there. And they're all 3-story non-touching townhomes, so they're all rentals,
Okay.
and they finally have come to completion. So there's a lot of people that have moved in.
So people moving out of bigger cities, maybe going for a smaller city.
Oh,
and
yeah,
enjoying
and I
that?
think everyone in this can understand how Texas has blown up. It's
Right.
pretty crazy. 45 is super fun to drive nowadays. But but it just seems like there's been a very large migration from other states to Texas.
Oh, interesting. And now, so with that growth, have you seen an increase in people engaging and wanting more of a transparent budget, or enjoying that, or participating in that budget process?
You have a few here and there. Local government, especially in the smaller side, it's not even really a city. You feel like you're more of a small community because you pretty much know everyone, or people feel a lot freer because they get a direct answer. They're not just thrown into a phone bank, or they get someone on the phone, so they'll call. We do have a few. A lot of our city is pretty unique because the residents benefit from the sales tax base a lot. So the property taxes are very low, water rates are very low because of that commercial influence. So really the most comments we get is because our city is also very pro first responder, pro police. They always are looking out for them, and they always want to know what we can do to try and retain and those services and the police officers that they love, because there's a lot of one-on-one interaction with our staff, with our residents.
Okay.
So
Wonderful. Thank you for that. The second question here, what priorities or initiatives is the city focused on? And are there specific KPIs that you're prioritizing?
So right now what we're focusing on is just offering the same services, same level of services with the budget dollars we have. Also trying to educate residents. That's number one. Social media, I think everyone here knows that when you work in a city, you don't want to be on the social media pages, right? You upset one person, or one person doesn't understand what's going on or what's happening, and it becomes more chaotic because it goes to social media, and then everyone else starts to chime in. So by promoting transparency and having all that stuff on our website that they can go and view, it gives them more confidence in us that things are being done correctly. We're not wasting, money, stuff like that. So going forward, our main priorities are to continue that education. Also, with the open book module, what we're working on is to have our other departments also have their transparency on there. So police department can have the number of calls and, how many hours they served in the neighborhood, based on our GPS modules. Administration can do more based on open records. They can put more information out there that is frequently asked by open records. Building department can do the same thing. Disclose, different permits have been pulled and what's coming to the city. So really when people don't know things and I think people are keeping stuff from them, that's what really gets people worked up. And if you could try to eliminate that the most you can, it works out for everyone. So just going forward, we're going to keep trying to do that. We're also in the process, because we are a small government, and it's trying to get, GFOA best budget and all those other aspects that go into budget and transparency as well. So we're small. It takes us a while to get some things done, but we're going to get it. So
yeah. Well, I feel as though it's small or large, it's hard to get transparency going, and having tools such as Open Book and others helps in that. And like you said, the education of just having the numbers out there and giving it to everybody and as much information as possible, hopefully that will help. Now, we're talking about citizens on social media sort of engaging. What's the relationship with the government and budget office with the citizens? Have you had trouble a lot with social media? Where do you get the most feedback from?
So we try not to be reactive. You don't want to, because then you wouldn't get anything done if you read social media all day. But if there are direct questions and my council members they see it and they know who has asked it, they get with me, they have me, and I'll reach out, usually our residents really don't stir a lot of concerns unless the tax rate's going to go up. And Texas right now, the tax rate seems to be something that everyone focuses on, after there was a Senate bill too, that kind of restructured how we have to present things and how it comes up, across. But typically budget process, I don't get a whole lot. It's only if the taxes are going up, that's going to rile everyone up, right? I think that's for most cities. If people aren't directly affected in their pocket, sometimes they don't really focus on it. But we do have a lot of people who like to know things. So I put my number out there. It's on the main page. Anytime anyone comes up to council and if they use their citizens inquiry to ask questions about budget, I give them my business card and I tell them to come up whenever they want. I live here, I feel like sometimes. So, even if you don't have a meeting, come on up and see if I'm here and we can discuss. So that's really what we try to do in our city, is to try to keep that line of communication open so that it doesn't cause turmoil and any chaos between the residents and the city, because we're here to work for them. That's what we're here for, right? So
it's also brave though too to have that open connection, when you get somebody to come in. Cecilia, have you ever had that kind of relation? Like, was Pinellas County a little bigger? Because it's a county as well. Have you ever had that type of relationship with the citizens?
It's a little bit harder. We have population here of about almost 1 million. So it makes it a little bit harder to give your phone number to everyone. And much more dangerous.
It's my work phone, not my cell phone.
Of course.
Yes, I knew you were smart enough for that.
Yeah.
No, but we always did try to practice as much transparency and open communication as we could. So being a larger organization, it usually had to be funneled a little bit differently. Because also we have, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same with Texas, but we have public records laws here in Florida that certain requests need to be responded to within 24 hours. So we also wanted to make sure people didn't get lost, so that they were making sure that all of their responses, because it's very easy if you're calling into, someone's office and they miss your call. And if they don't get back to you, it has the exact opposite effect that Lisa was just describing as far as that communication. But we always tried to be as open. You were talking about social media. We made sure that the county had a social media presence so that there was well-informed, that went through our communications department. And they maintain websites, like Twitter and Facebook, and we often use those for emergency situations as well. But they could try to get in front of the miscommunications and announce things, but also keep an eye on a pulse check on what was going on social media, and be able to redirect folks to the right information when things started going awry through conversations on social media. But it is quite a challenge, especially if there's a lot going on there, like there has been the last couple of years, that really set people off. Is the inflation, all the issues out there right now, worried about their taxes, worried about how money is being spent. So it is a slippery slope. And I love that, Lisa, you talk about being able to just connect with your citizens there, because that is the best way, when they feel like you're open to them. Just knowing that right there creates a level of trust that is really hard to get with some of the larger organizations.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always interesting when we talk about like that, having that open line of that transparency, but also that connection to somebody in government that they can speak to. Lisa, with a smaller city, a smaller number of people, I know you didn't grow up in Shenandoah, but do you find with that number of people, a lot of the citizens anyway, just personally from, just being around town and living within the city?
Yeah, so I actually live a little bit more north in the Conroe area, but we work so many special events, like directors and staff, because we are small, we have to work every event. So that's when you really meet a lot of people. Also, we have a couple boards. We have a municipal development district and we have a planning and zoning board. So we have a lot of people who cycle through those boards that you then meet, and you meet their neighbors, and so, and then also I'm over utility billing. So I get one-on-one, pretty much everyone, any department anyone's going to yell about, I get to do. So, so, we're always constantly, seeing new people move in, move out.
Right.
Typically we're contacting them about, trash bins and recycling bins. So you kind of have an opportunity to introduce yourself. So it is nice on that aspect that we have a smaller community that makes it easier to have that connection. Mm-hmm.
Well, and also, like when you talk about going out to see, are there other, like that helps build trust. Like when you do those events, are there any sort of planning processes that you do to better engage and build trust with the residents, like between the government and the residents? And then like how have those residents responded to your efforts of transparency?
Yeah, so we also, a little bit going back to our budget process, we start early. For being small, we start very early. Usually I have proposed budget books out by mid-June. And every meeting, we have 2 council meetings a month. Every meeting we have certain departments that we dive really deep into. So we look at those departments, and we talk about everything, so that the residents, and we have a YouTube so that anyone can watch our council meetings live or after the fact. So we dig really into a lot of those departments, and council will ask good questions. They always do. And or they'll have, if other residents can't be there, they can email council and council can ask those questions in open meeting for us, for staff to answer. So by having that much information about each department, and then we also have a huge joint meeting with our municipal development district for capital projects. So we talk about capital projects for months, I feel like sometimes, to the point that I'm over capital projects, but we keep talking about it, because we want everyone to know what's going on. So and then, and the next morning I might have an email saying, hey, what was this question about? Or, and I can answer it right away and be like, well, the council member was asking this, and this is the answer, and this is why. So that's pretty much, I think that engagement really helps out with them trying to understand what's going on in the budget.
Right.
Yeah, governments get a bad rap, but not all of us are bad. Like we're working, we're trying to make it better. Just you're limited to your resources sometimes. So
for sure. But I feel like if you give out the information that's needed, you can build, like, you're just building trust just by giving out the information that's needed, right? So that they can see the numbers as they come out in the budget. There's not much that they have to assume. I think when people start assuming, that's when it can get a little dicey. Cecilia, if you had, like, when you were at Pinellas County, and you deal with a lot of customers, of course, here at UNA, do you find the people who have the transparency tools up and running or getting them running find it easier to build that trust with their citizens?
Oh, absolutely. And it's like what you said, if the information is not somewhere available to them, people do make assumptions. The idea might be that you just don't want it out there. Sometimes it's just you don't have the tool yet. Maybe your organization couldn't pay for it yet. It's not everything's that easy to get out there. But nowadays, there's a lot more ways of being, like, even if it's a presence on social media, to be able to get something out or creating a website. But absolutely, I think when citizens have access to, the more information they have access to, I think the better they feel about what you're doing and what's being done for them. And they don't make those assumptions that they would have, and they know where to go to ask the right questions. Maybe you can't possibly answer every question ahead of time. I don't think any of us are that proactive, but giving them enough information to try to find it themselves, or to articulate an informative question. I think it really empowers the citizens that way. I also wanted to mention something we used to do, well, Pinellas County still does it, and I always really admired it, is that we had what was the Pinellas County Citizens University. And so each year we would have citizens sign up, and they would devote 3 hours in the evenings for a week for up to 6 weeks. So 6 weeks of that. And they'd get to meet representatives of each of the departments, being budget, public works, all the departments, and be able to ask questions, walk through how things worked, how things were organized. And I always loved that because it really gave them A to Z view of the, very short, obviously. It's not, you can't cover everything that in that amount of time, but it gave them some visibility in what the county was doing, what services they were providing, how they were using their funding. And I think different ways to, people that interested in it. And they were really, it was a really great interaction to have with our citizens because they were really truly interested in what was going on, not just because, where's my money going, but they were really interested in what was happening and how, knowing more about what was going on with the organization. And I just always thought that was a wonderful process that we went through. And I think they opened it up in the springtime, right when we're in the middle of budget development. So I gave an opportunity for the citizens to learn a little bit more and then deeper information, not just about the budget, but, all the way through all of our departments.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic program. That's great. Okay, we're going to take a interactive break, I like to call it. We're going to have a poll question. So what I want to know is have the people in the audience, have you received feedback from citizens on how transparent you are? So just let us know yes or no. And we'd love to, we'll give you about 30 seconds to answer that. And then I'd love to open it up. I know, I'm just going to let you know, we're having trouble with the chat. It says it's enabled. It's not working right now. So if you want to raise your hand and I can call on you and you can speak to us, because I find that's a little bit more intimate, a little bit easier to converse. I'd love to hear your questions on that. So if you are able to just sort of answer the poll, and then once that's done, I guess, Maria, if you can just show the results, that would be great to see once everybody's answered. Let's see where we're at here. Okay, 50-50. Some have said they've heard feedback and some that they haven't. Now, let's see here. Allison, it looks like you are up. I'm going to see if I can unmute you. I think you're already unmuted. Allison, do you have you received feedback? Are you able to chat?
She's unmuted.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Perfect.
Great. Yes, we have. We are still in the building phase of Open Book. I'm with the city of Garland. It's up in the kind of a suburb of Dallas, if you will. Right. About 250K population. We have received feedback on expanding to more of a transparency tool. So we are in process on building out Open Book, but most of what we hear is, a budget book is static. It's a table with some written words, and whether people read that and can translate the numbers to that paragraph describing it, it's a challenge. So the feedback we've received and kind of the focus is building in some of those more interactive ways to look at data. So you start with, your total city budget. Okay, if I click on that graphic, you drill in down to your city funds, and then you continue to drill down. So that's the direction we're going, and working to incorporate that transparency tool that we spend the time building out back into our departmental budget presentations, ways for city council to understand the proposed budget. So really not only using the tool year round and in order to report how we're, spending compared to our budget, but also use it as part of the budget presentation. And so I'm really excited about that opportunity, but that's where we've received the most feedback.
Very nice. Now, are there certain things, like, were you surprised at maybe some of the information that people have asked for that maybe you wouldn't have provided either in a budget book, or it kind of surprised you at some of the information that they're asking?
It depends. Some citizens really focus in on their interest areas and want to know where every single dollar goes on, the whatever a certain event that the Parks Department puts on each year. Right. But then others, I think, look at more of from a quote unquote auditing perspective, understanding where their city dollars go, how they're being utilized. and kind of just want to make sure that what the city's communicating in terms of its priorities is where the dollars are going.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Allison. Appreciate the feedback there and providing your insights of what you've learned over your time. Very much appreciative of that. Okay, is there anybody else that has anything they want to say on here? No? All right. We're going to continue on with the next question. Transparency Stars is an important initiative. It involves a process to share visibility into web summaries around expenditures, revenue, property, and sales taxes with residents. So, Lisa, why has applying for this award been so important for you and your team?
So we were part of the leadership circle, which the comptroller did host prior to the stars, and most people probably were part of that as well. When they introduced the stars program, it was a little bit more, a lot more detail based, whereas the circle was a little bit more elementary. So the stars are important for us because it's something that it's uniform across every government that is part of it. So it's easy it's kind of like, Gatsby, like they always want to make everything uniform so everyone can understand and there's not a bunch of different stuff going on that cities are trying to be with transparency. So it's nice because it's also built for the idea that it's for the public view. I think oftentimes when you're living in government and you're breathing these numbers and these processes, you often forget not everyone else is. And it's hard for them to understand sometimes the figures and the numbers and the processes that go on in city government. So because the comptroller is the one that oversees it, they have made it a uniform and very easy digestible presentation for anyone to go on and be able to understand. Some of it's a little bit weird. I will agree. I'm pretty sure there's other cities that say this is kind of, why are we doing this? But for the most part, it's really nice. I think the most hits that we get on it is probably the check registers. Everyone wants to know where money's going. That is the number one. The pension page, I think that still is confusing to people. And then debt's the other one that in the tax, there are 5 stars. Unfortunately, my city is only eligible for 4 because we do not have an economic development corporation. However, I have harassed the comptroller to recognize other boards like our municipal development district, who is project based, so it's kind of similar to an economic development corporation. So by having that framework from the comptroller, it's been easy for us to apply and maintain this award. Also, it's one of those few things because there are so many cities and school districts and in the state of Texas. It's nice to have that acknowledgement when you're trying to do the best you can for transparency. So that's why we like it. It also helps us direct residents to a certain area on our website if they're looking for that information. It just makes it easier for them. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Awesome. So just to move on to the next question here. Actually, I from the stars, it's based out of 5 stars, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then having 4 stars.
I have 3 right now. I'm almost at 4. Almost.
Okay, almost at 4. So who gives the feedback? Like when that's all displayed, where's that information displayed? Like in terms of the ratings of how many stars? Is that on like the state page or?
Yes, the state has they have a award recipient page, as well as you're given a little, it's a little graphic that you put on page. So it knows that you're part of that program and you've been awarded that star. Okay.
And now if you'll get to 4. We know this, it'll happen because you're amazing and the city's working towards it. When you can't have the 5th just because you don't have that, as you mentioned, like the Economic Development Corporation, are you seeing, is is it a bad thing to have 4 out of 5 stars? Like, you know, how do people look upon that, even though if you're not eligible because you don't have the ability to get
Well,
that
that was the other thing. I had a conversation with comptroller, because there are school districts that can't do the pension stuff because they're TRS.
Right.
So they have notations on those for those entities. So I'm trying to get that as well, so that if we're not eligible or we can't do it,
Yeah,
that there's a notation.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really looks down, but it's just nice to be, you know, hey, you're going above and beyond. Like, this is not required by
Right.
state, but you're doing it, you know?
Absolutely. It makes it look good that you're, especially when you're looking at transparency, right?
Yeah.
If you're making the effort, and I mean, if it's 4 out of 4 stars, it's even better because you can't get the 5th. So you're doing everything you can to get that 4-star, which is amazing. Cecilia, do you find that this is something that Florida needs? Like, do you think that's an important part for Florida, or do they have something similar?
I don't want to say they have something similar. There's a lot of reporting, but I don't think there's, to my knowledge, there's not anything that's quite like an award program. It's just required. Like you said, I think, Lisa, this was not absolutely required. This is something that you do above and beyond because you want to be transparent. You want to make sure you have everything out there. And I think it would absolutely be something that would be beneficial. Maybe because, you know, incentivize being more transparent and get, you know, and also it seems that it's very consistent. So not everybody's showing information in different ways. I actually, after we started talking about this originally, I, you know, kind of looked at that and I really loved that you could just go out there, click on the recipients and see, you know, click on a link and you could go see where they were with everything. So I think it would be a great thing to benefit not only the citizens, but even the organizations, to make sure it looks like it would also be great for benchmarking.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. Even looking at different cities and different sizes, something similar to your city, Lisa, and having others look and be like, okay, well, City of Shenandoah is doing they're at 4 stars. We should be at 4 stars as well, to show that we're kind of compete. Does it give a little competition between other cities? Have you heard anything about that?
I was one of the first in Montgomery County to get, I think, at least 2 stars. So of course, my council made a huge deal about it. So it's nice that way. I didn't take it like that. It was just one of the things that it just happened to be that way. So it worked out, but yeah.
But you know, that's another good point. It actually says to your leadership as well, you know, that this is an above and beyond. Look what we're doing for our citizens that we don't necessarily have to do. And I think, you know, that's something they must truly appreciate.
And that's the same with like the GFOA best budgeting, you know, best audit. It's nice things that you can do above and beyond and you're recognized for it. Do we need to be recognized? No, but it's nice sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Is there anybody else in the audience that is that it's in Texas? I know, Allison, you mentioned you're in Texas, that also are going for the transparency stars. Allison, we can begin with you if you'd like. Not trying to call you out or anything.
It is a longer term goal for us, but we're also, in addition to building out Open Book, we're beginning the implementation of a new financial system. So that, I think, is going to be our primary focus over the next year and a half. I'm
sending all of my well wishes to you. It's always fun.
Yes, you go through the pain in order to make the process better.
Right.
But it is a goal for us and a long-term priority. We have all the data. It's just getting the process built and getting it out on the web and then maintaining it. So, but it one day. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I think it's a great goal. Now, have your citizens, like, do people know about it? Is this like a popular program, or is it more for city governments and counties and so forth to follow and then tell their citizens that they're trying to achieve this? And that could be Lisa or Allison.
Oh, I'm sorry. We try to publicize it when we can. My council members love to use it during campaigns.
Of course.
But we do publicize it when we are awarded a new star. We do a little press release, you know, on social media. It's just to put it out there. A lot of people look at it? I couldn't tell you, but from the few that I've had feedback from, they do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Allison, how about yourself? Do you find that people are asking for it, or is this more of a city initiative?
City initiative.
Yeah.
And it will,
absolutely.
once we're prepared and we move forward with it, then we'll start educating our council and
Mhm.
I'm sure do some press release, all that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then begin to publicize it if we achieve it in the future.
You get a fancy little document you can take a picture with.
Yes.
Love it. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate the chiming in there, Allison. Thank you. And Lisa, of course, thank you. Moving on to our next question. We're talking about looking at accountability across departments, and having departmental ownership over reporting is obviously invaluable. So what can you share about that and the ability to share their data and forecasting across departments? I mean, we mentioned it before, Lisa, that you had, you can go right down to the every little detail for a GL account, but across departments, I think you said you have a budgeting person in each department that handles that. How is that shared and reported?
Yeah, so just to give a little backstory. So our budgeting process starts with each department enters their own budget into Questica. Typically the admin assistant in that department and the department head have the access to Questica. So the nice thing about it is that we previously used Encode version 10 is our ERP system. So if anyone's on Encode 10, you know that there's not a good budgeting process within that module. They're a great accounting software, but they're not, not up to date on that. So it makes it a lot harder to have a workflow process with your budget, whereas Questica replaces that and creates that workflow. So it's nice having department ownership within that system because they can actually do their forecast out 5 years, which we are trying to require for all our departments. Also, they can, and everything is audit trailed. So I can know when things change, when people changed it, whereas our other ERP system, not as friendly with that on the budgeting side. So it's really nice for us to have that, that accountability on each department. So they know exactly what they're, no one can come back and say, oh, Lisa missed it. I put it in there, and they put it in after I said, hey, I'm shutting down budget. I'm printing reports, right? So it puts the accountability on them to also meet those deadlines. That is the hardest thing, I think, sometimes is deadlines. And they also can run their own reporting through the software. They don't have to wait for me to run reports for them. They can run the reports, see what's changing. There's a great report. I can't remember what it's called, but it will actually show the changeover, last year to this year and a percentage of that line item, because we are very detailed. It's, that line item carries across. So it does a little bit of analysis for them to say, okay, why did this go 50%? So they can note that and give me that information. So it is very nice to have that workflow process. Also, it's nice that I don't have to remember, okay, well, I need to talk to so-and-so about this one line item because it doesn't look right. I can send a message directly through Questica and it sends to them and they know, okay, I need to look at this. So having the department ownership over the reporting and the accountability has been, it makes my life so much easier. I hate to go on about it, but it is, especially for our smaller cities that don't have centralized budgeting departments, it's critical to have that workflow built in and have everyone on the same page. So
fantastic. Now, Cecilia, do you like when working with customers and so forth, having that departmental reporting, that must be something that's of value to a lot of people, even Pinellas County?
Oh, absolutely. So we were decentralized in Pinellas County. With the different customers we've had, or I've had since I've started working with Questica, some are centralized, some are decentralized, and some are actually using Questica as the opportunity to change their processes at that time, which is great because, to Lisa's point, it's very difficult for departments to truly be accountable for not only doing what they need to do, but mostly for managing their own budgets and finances. If we take that power away from them in our finance and budget offices. So that's, the fingers are always pointing some way, like I didn't get enough money to do that, or I didn't know this was in my budget. So it's a great opportunity. The security around however an organization wants to set up their controls within Questica has been wonderful. And I do believe that departments want to be accountable for that. They just don't want to be held accountable for something they don't truly feel like they have control over. So this gives them that ability. Lisa did a great job of describing how you can communicate just using the tool. You don't have to go send an email anymore. You can just basically ping them in Questica, send them an annotation, and it'll tell them, I need your attention here. You can resolve it all within the software. You can promote, demote different things, have changes made, and then being able to run your own reports. And in some cases, probably even create their own reports, depending on how you want to give security. So departments could, technically have their own smart reports, their own dashboards that they could look at when they walk, just open up their software to see where they are, budget versus actuals, without having to spend a lot of time pulling another reports or tying them together. So it's just, I think it's a great way for them to feel, departments especially, to feel more accountable for what they're doing financially as well as operational, and being able to tie that back together.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to our next question. How do transparency budget solutions facilitate the collaboration and communication among different departments and stakeholders, of course, involved in the budgeting process? So Lisa, I'll direct that to Lisa first.
So kind of like I was going back to, it makes it easier with a workflow process. And then also, I think I kind of answered some of this question already. Sorry.
That's all right.
But we also let our council have access sometimes as view only, so they can dive deeper into the budget process as well. I am fortunate that I have a fortunate and it's also a disadvantage sometimes that most of my council members they are in some kind of IT. None of them are accountants, but they were all in IT. So at one point or the other, so they love to know the ins and outs of it. So being able to show them the workflow and then also show them the reporting helps them understand sometimes a little bit more, like on our forecasting, why we put things in there, why we're forecasting like that. So I think I got that. Like, I'm trying not to be redundant here, but
that's okay.
But basically, it just helps, the communication with the tools of just being able to ping someone and say, hey, this is wrong, fix it. I don't have to send 1,000 emails out and track those emails. And, so it just makes it a lot easier, so much easier.
Absolutely. Even especially when people are working maybe from different offices, some people, with the hybrid
but we
situation.
Had a lot of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially over COVID. Yeah. So that's great to hear. Good. Okay, we have another poll question here. What role does technology play in ensuring your budgeting processes meet standards for the Texas Transparency Stars, the GFOA awards, and an award-worthy presentation? Would love to hear just, too much, just enough, not enough. Love to hear your answers there. And then once people have answered, give about 20 or 30 seconds, Maria will show the results. All right. And then as we're waiting for that poll, I'll go on to the next question. Cecilia, this one's directed to you. Is there anything you'd like to share in your experience applying for the GFOA Distinguished Award? What are the key considerations that help streamline that process?
So I think that was
that was quick.
Sorry, I just saw the results 100%.
Yeah.
So with the GFOA award, I think what I learned over time, we had a much larger department here in Pinellas. So we had 30-ish, not all budget analysts. We had performance, strategic performance. We had CIP as a separate group, but we had a lot of players developing our budget. I think one of the things, no matter what size your department is it's key to reviewing those criteria before you ever start developing your budget book. Your budget is probably not going to change much based on, there may be a few things that you add to your budget, but it's really about communicating your budget out, which is a lot of what we talked about today. And seeing what the expectations. So the criteria for each of the the award criteria, the details for each of those are quite specific, but also quite flexible. they do always encourage more charts and graphs, so infographics are key. They really want to see that, but there's certain things they need to see in certain formats. What we would do, when I was with Pinellas, I think we were on year 17 or 18 of having received the award. And I will tell you, one of the funniest things that would always happen to us is we would get one reviewer giving us exceeds expectations, and then another reviewer would say you barely met them. And we couldn't figure out where we were supposed to land. So that can be a little frustrating and hard to navigate, because you don't know who's going to review and what they're looking for. But knowing going into early in the process, we would look at any feedback we received from the prior year. So if it's the first time, just be really close, really careful about reviewing the criteria and making sure you're checking all the boxes. If you've done it before, obviously review any feedback you get, and see if you can kind of come up with a plan for addressing that before you're right in the middle of developing a budget book. And because sometimes it's not going to be just developing the book you had last year. You might want to tweak your format a little bit. A couple of years ago, they added making performance measures, I believe, mandatory. I don't remember the last couple of years, for department level or the equivalent of a department level reporting. So that's something that in many cases would make you have to change the format of the reports that you're showing. So getting ahead of that, so you're not doing it when you're most stressed out. We've got to get a budget book out by this date. That was one of the key things. I think also having everyone on your team at least educated enough of what you're trying to achieve, and those, like I said, those check boxes that you need, because that way everybody's kind of keeping a lookout to make sure they're seeing things. What we did that made it so hard for a long time was we would do all that up front, go through the whole process. You deliver your final budget book. We had to do 3, but it was the adopted that was submitted for the award. Then you have 90 days to submit that for a reward. By then, we didn't want to look at a budget book. And we'd have 1 or 2 people who would be tasked with going and pulling everything together for that award, because you have to go in and say, on this page, this is what it is, this meets this criteria, and this is how it does so. But sometimes those aren't the people who were key in developing that book. And so it was harder for them. So just making sure everybody's kind of understanding what we're doing, looking at the criteria as you're developing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my correction to that mistake that we were making that made a couple of people's lives really hard. Just really knowing up front what you're looking for and kind of notating those as you're developing your book so that they're not so hard to find in the future. And we would always try to make sure we had at least 2 things, if we could, that met a criteria, because again, with those reviewers, one may love it, one may not so much love it. So just really thinking about it as you're doing all of your developing, and not thinking of it as an afterthought.
Yeah.
I think will save a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a lot more work to react to it than to be proactive, right? So
yeah. And when you're really just trying to purge that out of your mind, so because you're probably already starting to work on your next year budget.
Absolutely. That's
sorry,
wonderful.
but I think a few people on this call definitely understand what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I'm sure of it.
PTSD.
Okay, we're gonna just go to our final question before we open up the floor for a little bit. So Lisa, how can you future-proof your processes when it comes to when it comes to turnovers on the finance office to ensure continuity or continuity? Sorry. What's the benefit of having the budgeting tools?
Yeah. So as I said, we're small, very small. So, the turnover, fortunately has not hit us. And also Questica is what I brought in. So I was I built it from the ground up. So I have a lot more insight when it comes to it, and also with training. The benefit of having the budgeting tools is that as long as there's someone here that has been trained on it, it will continue. And it will be easy, hopefully easier than it was when I kind of took it over, which it was kind of chaotic. So, even though I was the accountant, I didn't have much say in budget, and we had a administration turnover. So it was kind of a fresh start, so how we future-proof it is that anyone that comes into our city as an employee of a certain department, if they're going to be tasked with the budget, I sit with them and we train through. I show them how to do a lot of the stuff. I'm always here for questions. They know that they can always reach out to the help desk if they needed help. But by having these processes and these tools put in place, the groundwork's already there. So it helps continue that procedural going forward. I'm not going to say things, I probably am not doing things that are, super efficient or effective, and someone might think might have a better idea. So we do have a lot of, feedback from other departments saying, hey, can we look at this? Can we look at this? So it keeps us moving forward, but also helps us make sure that the budget process is just moving forward and not going backwards.
Perfect.
The gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. That makes perfect sense. Okay, great. And of course you have training in place for people so that happens. So almost every year, do you do like every year, like a refresher so that people,
we try. The past couple
yeah,
years weird with, just everything.
yeah,
Sometimes, but I'm always here and I will sit with
right.
anyone if they need help. So.
Perfect. Well, that's always nice. Always nice to have a resource there like yourself. Okay. Thank you very much, Lisa. And thank you, Cecilia, for answering all those questions. Really appreciate it. For people in the audience, do you have any questions for Lisa or Cecilia, or do you have any comments, or you'd like to open up? We want to open up the floor for you to have your say. So feel free to either raise your hand or I guess we can unmute some people and see if they are able to speak or want to have any questions or anything like that. We have about 4 minutes for questions and conversation. You can also put it in the question and answer as well, if you'd like. Okay, I guess everybody's satisfied. Perfect. All right. Okay, great. Well, again, Lisa and Cecilia, thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out of your day. I know you guys are very busy, so we really appreciate you joining us. And everybody else in the house, thank you so much for joining us. That's our webinar. We will email you the link to the recording for you to watch and share with some friends and some colleagues. But other than that, thank you very much for joining us, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Feel free to email me if you need anything.
Perfect.
I'm always around.
Right on. Thanks.